I hope people find it inspiring, and yet also, it's a film about a heavy topic. It's about domestic violence, something that 1 in 3 women have to deal with globally. And we're just really proud of how the film turned out and the impact that it's had, and it's on Netflix now.
Blake Lively, once adored for her charm, style, and glowing public persona, is now watching her reputation collapse in a spectacular fashion. She supposedly was crushed and broke down in tears in the court after Baldoni allegedly presented video proof in court. How did we get here? It Ends With Us, the adaptation of a beloved book, should have been a career win for Blake. Instead, it ignited a storm of controversy. What seemed like a simple acting gig has quickly spiraled into a public nightmare. Behind the scenes, text messages began to leak, and with each new revelation, the pieces of Blake's carefully crafted image started to crumble. As the drama unfolded, one question emerged. Was this simply a case of bad press, or is there something much darker at play? The more people dug, the more troubling the evidence became, leading us to question Blake's every move. Could it be that the star, who once seemed so untouchable, was actually the mastermind behind her own fall from grace? But the story doesn't end here. As the leaks continued, the world got a shocking glimpse into Blake's behavior on set. What seemed like a simple acting gig has quickly spiraled into a public nightmare. Behind the scenes, text messages began to leak, and with each new revelation, the pieces of Blake's carefully crafted image started to crumble. When Blake Lively first began promoting It Ends With Us, fans were excited. This was supposed to be a heartwarming return to form for one of Hollywood's most beloved stars. But something felt off. As she sat down for interviews, the usual warmth and charm were noticeably absent. Instead, Blake's demeanor came across as dismissive, even condescending. When asked about her co-star Justin Baldoni's directorial style, she quickly deflected the question and steered the conversation back to her personal brand. Instead of diving into the movie's depth or showing excitement for the project, her responses felt like a calculated attempt to redirect the spotlight onto herself. She cracked flippant jokes that didn't land and dismissed questions with a level of sarcasm that felt uncomfortable, even for those who had long admired her. The more interviews she gave, the more fans started to notice the same patterns. She rolled her eyes when asked certain questions, and her answers often seemed to dismiss her colleagues or the work itself. Fans who had once adored her for being the relatable, approachable star began to wonder if there was a side to Blake they hadn't seen before. Could it be that the woman they thought they knew had been hiding something darker? Was this arrogance or simply stress from the pressure of being in the spotlight again?
Here's this name of this writer that cut through. That was interesting to me because, in older generations, everybody was listening to the same radio shows, watching the same 30 channels. So now when the whole world is open to you, for a name to cut through like that to a younger generation really made me perk up.
As the interviews piled up, the discomfort only grew. Blake's cold responses and refusal to engage in meaningful conversation seemed like a far cry from the bubbly, down-to-earth actress they once adored. Fans couldn't help but question, was Blake Lively losing control of her public persona? But even as the cracks in her public image began to show, it seemed like Blake had a different story to tell, and she was ready to fight back. As the negative buzz surrounding Blake Lively continued to grow, she took matters into her own hands, launching a full-scale defense against the accusations swirling around her. Instead of acknowledging any potential shortcomings on her part, Blake went on the offensive. She publicly accused co-star Justin Baldoni and his team of intentionally smearing her image, suggesting they were behind the negative press that seemed to follow her everywhere. According to Blake, the stories that painted her as rude or overbearing weren't genuine reflections of her behavior. Instead, she insisted that Justin's camp had planted these narratives in the media, trying to manipulate the public into viewing her in a negative light. Blake's accusations didn't stop at the press. She claimed that Justin and his team had orchestrated a full-blown smear campaign against her, planting stories in the media to undermine her reputation. To her, the press wasn't simply reporting on her behavior. They were complicit in a calculated effort to destroy her image. She even went as far as to say that Justin had a personal vendetta against her, using his connections to spread damaging stories. Blake Lively's accusations took a deeply personal turn when she claimed that Justin Baldoni barged into her trailer uninvited while she was pumping breast milk, describing the experience as invasive and humiliating. It was a moment that seemed designed to evoke sympathy. Who could possibly argue with the emotional weight of a new mother feeling violated in such an intimate, vulnerable moment? The story quickly gained traction as it painted Justin as disrespectful and unprofessional, completely disregarding Blake's personal space and boundaries. For many, it was a clear violation of decency and a powerful narrative that cast Justin in a highly negative light. However, as more text messages from Blake and Justin were leaked, the carefully constructed narrative began to unravel. The leaked messages told a different story.
And we were looking for like inspirational content that could have real impact. And she sent it to me, and I'd never read a romance novel. And it was the first time reading a book where the female protagonist, where I like got to be her and experience that. And I sobbed at the end of it, and I just called her and I said, I have to find a way to make this into a movie. And
Wow.
here we are.
Blake had, in fact, invited Justin into her trailer while she was pumping. The messages were casual, even playful, with Blake joking about the situation. In their exchange, Justin appeared hesitant, giving her multiple opportunities to change her mind, suggesting he wasn't keen on interrupting her, but was still willing to follow through on the invitation. Far from being a forced intrusion, it seemed like a consensual, if awkward, exchange between two colleagues. The contradiction between Blake's public claim and the private messages was jarring. What was initially framed as an invasive and disrespectful act now appeared to be a simple, awkward visit, one that Blake herself had invited. Suddenly, her story seemed less about her violated boundaries and more about a misstep in narrative control. And as the inconsistencies piled up, it became clear that the cracks in Blake's story weren't just superficial. There was something much deeper at play. Blake Lively's legal battle took yet another turn when she accused the film's producer, Jamie Heath, of showing her graphic, borderline pornographic footage while discussing a scene in the script. This accusation immediately sparked outrage, as it painted the producer in a deeply inappropriate light. The idea of a producer showing an actress such disturbing material on set seemed like a blatant violation of both professional conduct and personal boundaries. Blake's claim was powerful, and it played into the broader narrative she had been pushing, that she was being mistreated and disrespected during the production of It Ends With Us. For many, this was the final straw. How could a producer behave in such a way? However, the truth behind the footage was far less salacious than Blake's accusations suggested. After more details came to light, it was revealed that the footage was not explicit or inappropriate at all. In fact, it was a discreet video of a woman giving birth, shown to Blake as a reference for a realistic birthing scene in the movie. The footage, while intimate, was meant to help the cast and crew understand the physical and emotional dynamics of childbirth for an upcoming scene in the script. Those who had seen the footage described it as artistic and in no way pornographic.
Show it how valuable it is. So she does that with Atlas. She does that with, I imagine to an extent she did it with her father. I mean, she does it with her mother, she does it with herself, she does it with Ryle. She does it with her flower shop. So she sees the beauty in something that, others may cast aside or think is tarnished.
It was simply a professional reference aimed at ensuring accuracy and realism in the portrayal of childbirth on screen. Blake's dramatic framing of the situation as a violation of her personal space now seemed completely out of proportion. The footage, far from being inappropriate, was actually a thoughtful attempt by the producer to make the scene as authentic as possible. The reality of the situation exposed a pattern. Blake had been twisting normal professional exchanges into major violations for her own narrative. And as more of these revelations surfaced, it became harder to ignore the discrepancies in her version of events. As Blake Lively's behavior on set continued to raise eyebrows, it became clear that her involvement in It Ends With Us wasn't just about acting. Behind the scenes, there were growing allegations that Blake wasn't content with simply portraying her character. She was trying to seize control of the entire creative process. insiders began to whisper about her attempts to dictate the direction of the film, pushing for changes that went well beyond her role as an actress. Blake reportedly demanded the final cut of the movie, a request that would have given her unprecedented control over the final product. For an actor, this was an unusual move, especially considering that the film's writer and director, Justin Baldoni, had been deeply involved in shaping the project from the very beginning. Blake didn't stop at requesting the final cut. She allegedly sought to re-edit certain scenes behind Justin's back, working with editors and producers to alter moments in the film without his consent. This was not just a simple difference of opinion, it was an attempt to override Justin's vision for the movie. The situation became increasingly dramatic, with rumors circulating that Blake had even tried to undermine Justin's authority on set, potentially seeking to install herself as the de facto creative leader of the project. Her desire to control the film didn't just end with the editing process. There were whispers that she was trying to shape the movie's narrative and make decisions that traditionally fell within the director's domain. Some even speculated that Blake had been playing a high-stakes game, leveraging her celebrity status and connections to force her vision into the film, much to Justin's frustration. But it didn't end there. Blake's attempts to gain control of the production escalated, and soon she began pulling in some major players to back her up. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more coming soon.